Commander Alan Wright watched the giant space station grow bigger through his window. The massive wheel-shaped Galactic Council station sparkled against the black emptiness of space. His hands shook slightly as he gripped the edge of the desk. In his room on the USS Horizon, Earth's biggest warship. After 30 years of fighting for Earth, his career would end today, not with a party, but with a trial. The weight of his past choices pressed down on his shoulders like a heavy blanket. "Commander," the ship's computer said in its calm voice, "we will arrive in 30 minutes. The aliens have sent the rules for your hearing." Alan said nothing. He just kept staring at the approaching station. The message had come 6 weeks ago. They wanted to try him for war crimes during the Orion conflict. The big shots back on Earth called it unfair. They said the aliens just wanted to make humans look bad since humans were still new to space travel. Earth's leaders had ordered him to ignore the message. He had said no to that order. "Tell Captain Lisa Daniels I'll be ready to go with the council guards when we dock," Alan finally said. Lisa had been his helper during the war. Now she was the boss of the Horizon. Her job was to bring him to face what they had both done years. How the door made a soft sound and Lisa walked in without asking. They had known each other too long for such formalities. "The diplomat sent these," she said, giving him a small computer tablet. "Things to say, ways to avoid questions, and complaints to make if they ask hard questions." Alan took the tablet, but put it down without even looking at it. "I don't need those," Lisa frowned. "Alan, you don't get what you're walking into. These aliens don't think like us. What we did at Orion Prime was war. They're calling it murder." "Maybe they're right," he said softly. "You saved billions of humans by killing millions of aliens." Alan turned back to the window. "For 10 years I've told myself it had to be done. Now I want to hear what other species think about it." Lisa moved closer and spoke more quietly. "Earth's leaders are worried about what happens next. If aliens can put our war decisions on trial, then maybe we'll start making better decisions." Alan cut in. "They only want to try me. No one else will be blamed. I made sure of that in my answer to them." "You answered them yourself? Without permission?" Lisa couldn't hide her surprise. Alan gave a small smile. "My last time breaking the rules, I guess." The space station was very close now. A huge ring of light turning slowly in the darkness. Leaders from 27 alien civilizations would be waiting for him. Some of these aliens had been traveling between stars when humans were still figuring out how to make fire. "What are you going to tell them?" Lisa finally asked. Alan picked up a small wooden box from his desk. Inside were all his medals and awards from his years of service. He would not take them with him. "The truth," he said simply. "Everything." Outside the window, the great engines of the USS Horizon fired their braking thrusters, slowing the massive ship as it approached the docking bay. The sudden change in momentum made small items on Alan's desk slide slightly. He could see alien ships now, strange shapes and designs that human engineers had never imagined. Some looked like giant sea creatures, others like perfectly smooth stones, and a few seemed to bend light around them in impossible ways. Alan put on his formal uniform jacket, making sure every button was properly fastened. The Earth insignia, a blue circle with white lines showing Earth's continents, was pinned to his chest. He wondered if this would be the last time he wore it. "They'll paint you as a monster," Lisa said, trying one last time to change his mind. "I've had nightmares every night for 10 years, Alan replied, straightening his collar. "I see their worlds burning. I hear their screams in my sleep. Maybe I'm a monster." A heavy thud echoed through the ship as the docking clamps engaged. They had arrived. "Ship secured. Docking complete," announced the computer. Alan took a deep breath. In his top pocket was a small data crystal containing evidence the Earth government had tried to destroy. Evidence of what really happened at Orion Prime, not the story told in history books, but the ugly truth. "The aliens sent an honor guard," Lisa said, checking her own computer tablet. 6 representatives from different species. They're waiting at the airlock." "An honor guard?" Alan raised his eyebrows. "For a war criminal?" "Maybe they respect that you came willingly," Lisa suggested. "Or maybe," Alan thought to himself. They understand something about honor that humanity had forgotten. He slid his finger across a panel on the wall and the door to his quarters slid open with a soft hiss. Earth gave me one last order this morning, Lisa said as they walked down the corridor. If you start to reveal classified information, I'm supposed to trigger an emergency recall and pull you back to the ship by force. Alan stopped walking and turned to face her. Crew members moved past them, avoiding eye contact, knowing who he was and where he was going. And will you follow that order? He asked. Lisa looked at him for a long moment before answering. I followed your orders at Orion Prime, she finally said. Every single one. Even when we both knew what it would mean. They reached the airlock where the alien delegation waited. Through the small window, Alan could see beings of different shapes, sizes, and colors. Some had too many limbs, others had none at all. One seemed to be made entirely of light. This is where we part ways, Alan said. Lisa surprised him by suddenly giving him a tight hug. Whatever happens in there, she whispered, you're still the best commander I ever served under. As the airlock began to cycle, Alan stepped inside alone. The door sealed behind him with a final-sounding thud. I hope that's not true, he whispered to himself as the outer door began to open. For humanity's sake, I hope that's not true at all. Alan stepped through the airlock. The air smelled different, clean but with hints of something like cinnamon and ozone. 6 alien guards waited for him. They didn't look scary or mean. They simply bowed their heads in a show of respect. The tallest, guard with skin that shimmered blue like deep water, spoke in perfect English. Commander Wright of Earth, we will escort you to the Great Chamber. The Council awaits. Alan followed them down a wide hallway. The floor was made of something that looked like marble but felt slightly soft under his boots. The walls curved upward into a high ceiling filled with tiny lights that looked like stars. Other aliens moved through the hallway, some walking on many legs, others floating above the ground. A few looked almost human except for their unusual skin colors or extra eyes. Most stepped aside when they saw Alan's group, staring at the human with curious looks. Is it true you're the first human to accept a council summons? Asked one of the guards, a being with 4 arms and skin that changed colors as it spoke. Yes, Alan replied simply. Brave, said the guard. Its skin turned a deep purple color. Or foolish. The elders haven't decided which yet. They reached a massive door made of what looked like wood but swirled with patterns that moved as Alan watched. The patterns rearranged themselves to form words in Earth English. Commander Alan Wright, Council hearing. Take a deep breath, the blue-skinned guard advised. The chamber can be overwhelming for first-timers. The huge doors slid open without a sound, and Alan felt his mouth drop open in awe. The Galactic Council chamber was the biggest room he had ever seen. It rose at least 15 floors high, with rings of seats circling all the way up. Thousands of different aliens sat in those seats, all looking down at a small round platform in the center. The room was so big that some sections had their own weather. Small clouds floated near the ceiling, and in one section a light rain fell, stopping perfectly at an invisible line. Some aliens sat in special bubbles filled with different gases or liquids. Others needed extreme heat or cold, their sections glowing red or blue with temperature controls. The guards led Alan to the center platform. His footsteps echoed in the sudden quiet as every alien eye, tentacle, and sensing organ turned to watch him. Don't worry about the gravity, the blue guard whispered. The platform will adjust to your species. As Alan stepped onto the round platform, he felt a slight change as if his body suddenly became a perfect weight, not too heavy, not too light. A voice filled the chamber, coming from everywhere at once. Commander Alan Wright of Earth, you stand before the 23rd Grand Assembly of the Galactic Council. The voice was neither male nor female, but somehow beautiful. Alan looked around, trying to find who was speaking. The Council acknowledges that you have come here of your own free will, against your government's wishes. This shows courage. High above, a section of seats held a small group of humans in Earth government uniforms. They looked angry. Alan recognized Ambassador Patricia Coleman, her face tight with fury. "The charges before this council are serious," the voice continued. "You are accused of using banned weapons against the Loran species during the Orion conflict, resulting in their extinction and the destruction of 16 living worlds." Screens appeared in the air around the chamber, showing beautiful garden planets. And then the same planets dying, their oceans boiling away, their forests turning to ash. Alan forced himself to look at the images. He had seen them in his nightmares for 10 years. Before we begin, we must note that Earth was not a member of the Galactic Council when these events happened. Earth had not signed our laws against using planet-killer weapons. This hearing is therefore to establish facts, not to punish. From the Earth section, Ambassador Coleman stood up. Her voice was sharp and angry. "The United Earth government does not accept these proceedings. Commander Wright is here against orders. His words do not represent Earth's position." A ripple of sounds moved through the chamber, clicks, whistles, and rumbles that Alan guessed were the alien version of whispers and murmurs. The main voice spoke again. "Your objection is noted, Ambassador Coleman. Commander Wright, you may now address the council about what happened at Orion Prime." Alan stood straight, his hands at his sides. The platform lifted him slightly, so all the aliens could see him better. 10 years ago, he began, his voice steady, "I gave the order to use 13 quantum cascade bombs against the Loran homeworld and their colony planets." The room went completely silent. "I was told to use any weapon needed to end a war that had killed more than 3 billion humans. The Loran had created a biological weapon that specifically attacked human DNA. They had already used it against our colonies." Alan paused and looked at the thousands of alien faces watching him. "What I'm about to tell you isn't in any official Earth record. It's not in our history books. But it is the truth, and it's why I'm standing here today." The silence in the room grew deeper. Even the small clouds near the ceiling seemed to stop moving, as if the whole chamber was holding its breath. Alan took a deep breath. He had practiced this moment in his mind for years, but now that it was here, he felt his heart beating fast against his ribs. In the Earth section, he saw officials urgently talking into communication devices. They knew what he was about to do. They were probably calling for emergency measures to stop him or discredit him, but it was too late. The secret he had carried for a decade was about to be spoken aloud for the first time. The blue-skinned guard who had escorted him gave a tiny nod of encouragement. Alan looked up at the ring of seats, making eye contact with as many different species as he could. "The official Earth story says that the Loran attacked us first," he continued. "But that story is a lie." Ambassador Coleman jumped to her feet again. "This is treason. He has no authorization to—" The chamber's system smoothly lowered the volume of her protests until they were just a background noise. Alan stood tall on the platform, feeling strangely free. The weight of 10 years of lies was about to lift from his shoulders. "Let me tell you what really happened," he said. "The true story of how the war with the Loran began. The official Earth story says the Loran attacked first," Alan continued as the room stayed completely silent. "Our history books say they hit our research bases without warning. They say the Loran used biological weapons that turned human bodies to liquid in hours. They say we had no choice but to hit back with everything we had." Alan took a deep breath. "That story is a lie." The Earth section erupted. Ambassador Coleman shouted about treason and security laws. Other Earth officials stood up, waving their arms and pointing at Alan. The Council's sound system gently turned down their voices until they were just background noise. 6 months before the first Loran attack, an Earth ship called the Nightshade entered Loran space under my command. We were a Black Ops team. That means secret military, no markings on our ship, no official mission. Alan could see Earth security people heading for the exits, probably rushing to report his words to their bosses on Earth. He kept going. We had learned that the Loran had found technology from an ancient species we call the Precursors, the Yao, same beings who built the jump gates that let us travel between stars. Earth wanted that technology. The screens around the room now showed images of the Loran. They were beautiful beings with skin so clear You could see the organs inside their bodies. Those organs glowed with soft-colored light. They looked peaceful, with large eyes and gentle movements. The Loran were not fighters, Alan said, his voice getting softer. They had no army, no warships. They used their science to turn dead planets into gardens. They had made 16 worlds into paradise. The images now showed Loran worlds, planets with perfect blue oceans, lush forests, and cities that looked like they grew from the land rather than being built on top of it. Our mission was to break into their main research center and steal any precursor artifacts. We sent in 12 soldiers. Alan paused, his voice catching. When the Loran scientists found them, my team used deadly force. 42 Loran died that day. Shocked sounds filled the chamber. Many species clearly couldn't believe what they were hearing. What we didn't understand was that the Loran shared a group mind. All Loran were connected. When those scientists died, every Loran across all 16 worlds felt it. They all experienced those deaths as if they were dying themselves. The screens now showed the beautiful garden worlds starting to die. Plants withered. Waters turned brown. It was like the planets themselves were in pain. Their sadness changed their worlds physically. The ecosystems they had built began to die with them, and they figured out who had hurt them. Humans. A being made entirely of light rose from one of the upper rings. Its voice sounded like bells. The bioweapon they created. Was that their first action against humans? No, Alan answered firmly. They tried to talk to us first. They sent messages asking why we had attacked them. They asked for peace talks. And how did Earth respond? Asked a massive alien whose voice was so deep that Alan felt it in his chest. We denied everything. We said we knew nothing about any attack. We refused to admit what we had done or make it right. Alan's voice was hollow with shame. You knew all this when you gave the order to use the quantum bombs? The light being asked. Yes, Alan said simply. I knew we had started it. I knew. They were just responding to our attack. I knew they had tried for peace, and I still gave the order that ended their entire species. Why? Asked the deep-voiced alien. Why would you do this if you knew the truth? Alan tried to keep his voice steady. Because by then, their bioweapon had killed 3 billion humans. Because our governments were falling apart from fear. Because our colonies were destroying themselves in panic. He looked around the huge room. And because I told myself that my first job was to protect humans, no matter who started the fight. Alan pointed to the screens showing the dead planets. 16 worlds that may never have life again. A whole thinking species gone from the universe forever. This is what I did. Not Earth. Not humanity. Me. I gave the order. From the Earth section, Ambassador Coleman was now speaking urgently into a communication device. Alan knew what was coming next. They would try to say he was crazy, that he had lost his mind, that nothing he said could be trusted. Do you have any proof of these claims? Asked a new voice. This one belonged to an elder of the Vidaki species, a being with skin like polished wood and eyes that looked ancient and wise. Yes. Alan reached into his uniform pocket and pulled out a small data crystal. It glowed softly in his palm. This contains everything. The original mission plans for the Nightshade, the reports from the attack team, my personal command logs, the peace messages from the Loran that we ignored. He held up the crystal so everyone could see it. I was ordered to destroy all of this. Instead, I kept it hidden for 10 years. A small flying robot came to Alan, taking the crystal gently from his hand. It delivered the crystal to the Vidaki elder, who looked at it thoughtfully. We will check if this information is real, the elder said. Until then, we will take a break from this hearing. Alan felt strangely peaceful as guards came to lead him out. For 10 years, he had lived with the lie. Now, finally, he had told the truth. The room they took him to was comfortable. It had the right gravity, air, and temperature for a human. He sat alone for several hours while the council studied his evidence. When the door finally opened, it was Lisa Daniels who entered. Her face was white with shock. The council is showing your evidence to every species, she said, her voice tight. Including Earth? Alan nodded. Good. Good? Lisa's voice got louder. Do you have any idea what you've done? Earth's place in the galaxy will be ruined. Trade deals, technology sharing, defense agreements, all at risk. We built those relationships. On lies, Alan replied. On killing a species and calling it self-defense. Lisa paced around the small room. Earth Command has taken away your rank. The ambassador is telling everyone you made up the evidence. The council has ways to check if it's real, Alan said quietly. They'll know it's true. Lisa stopped pacing and looked at him directly. Why now? After all these years? Because humans want to expand further into space, Alan answered. Because we're building weapons even worse than what we used on the Loran. Because if we don't face what we did, what I did, we'll do it again. A soft tone sounded, meaning their time was ending. What happens now? Lisa asked. I don't know, Alan admitted. But whatever it is, it's what we deserve. What I deserve. The guards returned to take him back to the council chamber. As he stood, to follow them, Lisa spoke one last time. I was your second in command. I followed your orders at Orion Prime. Alan stopped at the doorway. And I'll tell them that everyone under my command has no blame. The choice was mine alone. That's not how responsibility works, Lisa whispered. And you know it. For a long time after Alan finished speaking, the council chamber was quiet. The screen still showed images of the dead Loran worlds, planets that had once been full of life, but were now just rocks floating in space. No one moved. No one spoke. It was as if the whole room was taking a moment to think about what had been lost. The first to break the silence was Ambassador Coleman from the Earth Group. Her face was red with anger as she stood up. Commander Wright is clearly sick in the head, she announced, her voice shaking. His story goes against all official records of the war. We ask that he be given back to Earth right away for medical help. Alan stood still on the platform, looking at the images of extinction that floated around him. The Vidaki elder leaned forward, eyes focused on Alan. Commander Wright, do you have proof of your claims? Yes, Alan replied. I've carried it with me for 10 years. He held up the small data crystal that the robot had taken to the council leaders. In the bright lights of the chamber, the crystal sparkled like a star. This has everything. The real mission logs from the Nightshade, the original orders from Earth Fleet Command, my personal journal during the war, the messages the Loran sent, trying to make peace before they attacked us with their bioweapon. The crystal caught the light and threw tiny rainbows across the platform. I was ordered to destroy all this information. Instead, I saved it. The small robot returned, taking the crystal back to the council's technical team. We will check if this information is real, the Vidaki said. Until then, we will pause this hearing. Alan felt a strange peace as the guards led him from the chamber. For the first time in a decade, he had spoken the truth out loud. Whatever happened next, prison, exile, even death, seemed less important now. The room they took him to was nice enough. It had the right gravity and air for a human. He sat alone for hours while the council studied his evidence. When the door finally opened, it wasn't the guards who came in, but Captain Lisa Daniels. Her face was pale, and she looked like she hadn't slept. The council is sharing your evidence with every species, she said as soon as she entered. Including Earth. Alan nodded. Good. Good? Lisa's voice got higher. Do you have any idea what you've done? Earth standing in the galaxy will be ruined. Trade deals, technology exchanges, defense agreements, all at risk now. We built those relationships on lies, Alan replied. On the extinction of a species that we painted as self-defense. Lisa walked back and forth across the small room. Earth Command has taken away your rank, stripped your name from the records. The ambassador is telling everyone you made up the evidence. The council has ways to check if data is real that are better than ours, Alan said quietly. They'll know it's true. Lisa stopped pacing and looked at him directly. Why now, after all these years? Because humanity wants to spread further into the galaxy, Alan answered. Because we're building weapons even worse than what we used on the Loran. Because if we don't face what I did, we'll do it again. A soft sound played, showing their time was ending. What happens now? Lisa asked. I don't know, Alan admitted. But whatever it is, it will be what we deserve. What I deserve. The guards returned to take him back to the council chamber. As he stood to go with them, Lisa spoke once more. I was your second in command. I followed your orders at Orion Prime. Alan stopped at the doorway, and I'll tell them that everyone under my command bears no blame. The decision was mine alone. That's not how responsibility works, Lisa whispered. And you know it. The walk back to the council chamber was longer than Alan remembered. Or maybe it just felt that way because of what was waiting for him. The guards didn't talk this time. They moved with stiff bodies, keeping more distance from him than before. News travels fast, Alan thought. They've seen the evidence. When they reached the great doors, Alan noticed something different. The moving patterns in the wood-like material were no longer forming his name. Now they showed a scene, a garden world burning, flowers turning to ash. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. The doors opened, and Alan stepped back into the chamber. The room had changed. Before, each species had sat in their own section separated by type. Now many had moved to sit with others, mixing together where their body types allowed it. It was like a statement, unity in the face of what Alan had revealed. He took his place on the central platform once more. The screens now showed new images, the data from his crystal, mission logs, secret orders, and messages from the Loran begging for peace. The Earth delegation section was completely empty. The Vidaki elder spoke first. Commander Wright, we have checked your evidence. It matches your story about how the war with the Loran species began. Sounds spread through the chamber. Clicks, whistles, and low rumbles that Alan guessed were the alien version of shocked whispers. Before we say our judgment, the Vidaki continued, we must note how unusual your actions today are. No person from any species has ever voluntarily told us about their civilization's crimes this way. Alan stood silently, waiting for whatever would come next. The Council understands that this conflict happened before Earth joined galactic society, the insect-like Vrek representative added, making clicking sounds between words. You are not bound by our laws, yet you have chosen to be judged by them. Why? Because they're right, Alan said simply. Because rules that protect thinking species shouldn't need a signature to matter. The light-being representative glowed, brighter. You understand that by our standards what you did counts as extinction-level crimes? That the normal punishment is the complete ending of the criminal's consciousness? I do, Alan replied, standing straight. The council chamber had changed. Where before the species sat apart from each other, now many had moved to sit together. Those who could breathe the same air or tolerate similar gravity sat side by side. It was a silent message to Alan, unity, in the face of his confession. He took his place on the central platform once more. The screens now showed different images, the proof from his data crystal. There were mission logs, secret orders, and desperate peace messages from the Loran. The Earth delegation seats were all empty. The old Vidaki spoke first. Commander Wright, we have checked your evidence. It matches your story about how the conflict with the Loran species began. Sound spread through the huge room. Many species were talking all at once in their own languages. Before we give our judgment, the Vidaki continued, we must say how unusual your actions today are. No one from any species has ever voluntarily told us about their civilization's crimes this way. Alan stood silently, waiting. The Council understands that this conflict happened before Earth joined our galactic community. A bug-like alien added, making clicking sounds between words. You are not bound by our laws, yet you have chosen to be judged by them. Why? Because they're right, Alan said simply. Because rules that protect thinking species shouldn't need a signature to be followed. The light-being representative glowed brighter. You understand that by our standards what you did counts as the worst possible crime. That the normal punishment is the complete ending of the criminal's mind? I do, Alan replied, standing straight. A new voice spoke, musical and beautiful. It came from a tall, slender alien with 4 arms and skin that changed colors as it talked. Yet we find ourselves in a strange position, this new alien said. Your world believes one story. You have shown us another. Your leaders have rejected you. Your evidence contradicts their story. We must think about how our judgment affects not just you, but all humans' place in galactic society. The room grew darker, showing that the council was entering formal discussion time. Voices in dozens of languages filled the air as translation. Systems worked hard to keep up with the complex arguments being shared. After what seemed like hours, the room brightened again. Commander Alan Wright, the old Vadaki announced, the council has reached its decision. Alan braced himself for whatever would come next. You are guilty of ordering extinction-level actions against the Loran species, the Vadaki said. This cannot be undone. No punishment can bring back what was lost. Alan nodded, accepting the words. However, the Vadaki continued, your voluntary confession, saving of evidence, and willingness to face judgment show something important to all civilized species, the ability to recognize wrong and try to fix it. The musical-voiced alien rose. The council therefore sentences you to life, not prison life but service life. You will become Earth's first memory officer, tasked with creating the complete true record of the Orion conflict for future generations of humans. Alan blinked in surprise. Also, you will oversee Earth's contribution to the Loran Restoration Project. 16 worlds lie dead. Earth has planet-healing technology that might, over hundreds of years, bring them back to life. The light being's glow pulsed as it spoke. You cannot bring back the Loran, but you can make their worlds live again and make sure humanity never forgets why they died. Alan felt his legs go weak beneath him. This was not the punishment he had expected. It was something much harder. He would have to live with what he had done, working every day to address its results. Do you accept this judgment? Asked the Vadaki. Yes, Alan whispered, then cleared his throat. Yes, I accept. Then we have one final thing to show you, the Vadaki said, pointing to a dark section of the chamber. The light slowly came on, showing a special container unlike any other in the room. Inside floated what looked like a small glowing ball. This is the last Loran, the Vadaki explained. Not a single being, but a memory seed containing the mind patterns of their entire species. It was found in the ruins of their science center 3 years ago and brought to the council for safekeeping. Alan stared in disbelief. The Loran cannot be brought back to physical form with our current technology, the light being explained. But their memory, their knowledge, their essence survives. They wait for a future when they might live again. The musical-voiced alien spoke once more. Your first job as memory officer will be to formally say sorry to the last Loran. They have agreed to hear you. Alan found himself being guided toward the special container. As he got closer, the glowing ball pulsed gently, showing it knew he was there. Standing before the preserved mind of a species he had ordered destroyed, Commander Alan Wright finally cried, I am sorry, he whispered to the last Loran. What I did was unforgivable. The ball pulsed in response, and the council's translation system shared its reply. Forgiveness is not what we seek, human. Understanding is. You have begun to understand. That is enough for now. Around the chamber, leaders from 27 civilizations watched this exchange in silence. An ending, but also perhaps a beginning. For Alan Wright and for humanity, the true reckoning was just starting. As he stood there, tears running down his face, Alan made a silent promise to the glowing ball that held the last memories of the Loran. He would spend the rest of his life working to restore their worlds. He would make sure humans never forgot or repeated his terrible mistake. And maybe, just maybe, in some distant future, the Loran might live again. The blue-skinned guard who had first welcomed him to the council stepped forward and placed a gentle hand on Alan's shoulder. Come, the guard said softly. There is much work to be done. Alan took one last look at the glowing ball, bowed deeply to show his respect, and turned to follow the guard from the chamber. Behind him, the great doors opened. Before him lay a lifetime of atonement. It would never be enough. But it was a start. End.